So you find yourself at the job interview for Angular role and they ask you, what is routing? Routing is a mechanism that allows you to display the part of application you want to display. Like you have my awesome app / home, you see home. My awesome app / shopping cart, you go to shopping cart. So you display the component of Angular based on URL. Guards then guard you and they allow you to enter the component which is allowed to enter. If you are not allowed, for example, you don't have age for it, you only are 16 and you must be 17 or 18, right? You can't enter, or you can't go to the payment process when your shopping cart is empty. So this is how I would answer the question the simplest way. If you have a better answer how to reply, let me know in comment. However, the most important is always to understand how it works and to have some hands-on. So let's run a simple application and let's see it, how it works. So let's open a new project. New project. Let's call it my awesome guard up. Project files, terminal. Let's make it larger so you can see it. And let's start. So the first step would be to create an Angular application. We would install Angular 17, so with npx. That means we don't need to have it installed globally, actually. So npx Angular CLI and would be next, and it would be new my some words app again, and if it is minimal, let's do it as standalone. We might be happy with CSS, but let's stick to SCSS. Do you want to enable server-side? We don't need server-side now, so no. And let's wait for a few seconds. Great. ng-surf. This command is not available, so because we are not in the folder. So let's go to the folder, and here we should have an application working and running after ng-surf. Now application is running on localhost. Cool, perfect. We got it. So first what we go to do is we'll create components. Components, so we can route the components from one to one, and let's travel around the world. So we will create component for Sydney. Component Sydney. Now let's do component for Tokyo. And we also can create a component for home. Great. Now we see in our app folder 3 components, and in our app component HTML we have the initial code, which we can remove because we are creating our new application, and it will be travel app. Travel app, let's see the changes. Yes, we have travel app, and we would have here our navigation, a home. It would have Australia or Sydney, and we would have Tokyo. Our app now looks like this. Now we are not going to do any styling in this tutorial. We are only showing guards and routing, so let's just do like this. So the navigation would look slightly nicer. Maybe we might add some general styling. Font, all letters. At the page we would set 30 pixels. In normal life we would use REM, but this is not any important. Alright, home, Sydney, Tokyo. This is supposed to be a navigation. Now nothing happens when we click, so let's get back to the application and let's make it working. In default application we already have not a module because we have standalone application, but we have app.roots TypeScript, and here we can define our roots. Roots is an array of objects, each is for specific root, and what root does mean is that when you could go here and place Sydney, we would go to Sydney component. So far we don't, so let's do it. We need to define path, would be Sydney, and we have typo, and we would go to component Sydney. And this is it. This is the main purpose of routing. Tokyo, the same. In real life we probably would use lazy loading, but again this is not the aim of this tutorial. We can come to this advanced topic later in another, or again sign up to SpiralCoder program and we'll go through. For this purpose, to explaining the guards, let's just stick to Sydney component, Tokyo goes to Tokyo component, and then we have our home. So it even can be nothing. Yeah, we would first need to define empty, so let's do empty, and let's redirect empty to home. So this is again the feature of routing. So if we have path empty, just localhost, we will then redirect to the path for home. And now we define what to do with path for home, and we want to display the content of home component, and that is it. what we now need to do is to display this content of these components somewhere. And where we are going to do it, we are going to do it in our app component in this case. How we are going to do it? We are going to do it with so-called router outlet. Router outlet, close tag for router outlet, and this is it. So we now have our title, we now have our navigation, and we now have a place, just a placeholder, where we want to display the content of component we choose in our navigation. So we can do the placeholder. Here we want to see where we are. And let's see if it is working. Yeah, here we want to see where we are. We don't see anything yet. Why? Because we don't have navigation working yet. But if we would type here manually, I suppose we would see some results. Let's do Sydney. Redirect to home. Please provide path match. Yeah, please provide path match. Yeah, we forgot to provide path match, so just follow the advice DevTools gave us. And let's go back to router and let's add just path match. Don't overthink it. Just add it as it should be. So path match full. And that's it. Yeah. So Sydney works because we are in Sydney. Tokyo. Tokyo works. Perfect. Great. And when we don't have anything, we go to home. Home works. Home works. Great. We don't have styling for this, so we even don't need it. Let's remove it. And the next step, so we don't need to write our paths manually. Let's make our navigation working. So far we only have AAA, but it's empty. We are going to use router link. Router link is not a scope of current template, so we import it. We use help of IntelliJ or your IDE. So now we import it in TypeScript. Our router link. Okay, router link home. Oops. Now router link. Actually, router link we can put empty and home is here. So this is it. Sydney path as /Sydney, and again Tokyo would be router link /Tokyo. And now let's believe our navigation is active. We can slightly make it bigger, and we have home, Sydney, Tokyo, home, Sydney, Tokyo. Great. So we see our path in browser is changing, and also the content is changing. Home, Sydney, Tokyo. And this, my friend, is routing. Could you skip to the good part? Yes, of course I could. Let's do it. Guards. What are guards? Imagine that you would want to allow to enter Tokyo only to someone, not to anyone, not to Sydney. Imagine that you could not enter Sydney component if you don't have visa for Australia. Let's correct this typo. So let's go to Sydney, and at least here let's replace for Sydney, Tokyo again. Let's not allow user to enter Sydney if he doesn't have visa for Australia. And this is called guards. So let's guard it. In app root, we can create a guard, and it would be constant. And this is what's new in Angular 17. Now we have functional guards, which is less code for unit tests, easier to write, easier to read. I love it, and we all love it, and we all are happy it happened. Hopefully, if you are not, and if you have something why you would miss the old way of writing classes, let me know in comments. But I am happy it happened. And if you don't know what is the difference between functional programming and writing classes, object-oriented, then Google it or sign up to SpiralCoder program and we can get there. But for now, in this video, we are going to write just simple function. So it would be constant Sydney or Australia guard. Guard would be function of, let's say, boolean, and it would return true or false, true or false. If this function returns true, then we are allowed to enter Australia. Now to the root, and we will add a new member. We have path component, and lastly we would have can activate. Can activate would be, can activate is an array of guards. So we have array of one guard, Australia guard, and since we have Australia guard set to true, we should not see any change. Home, Sydney, Tokyo. Great. But let's say we have some service. For example, here in app component, it would be a checkbox. He would need to confirm that he has visa, or it would be some automatic system, or in other case it would be a more complex form and you don't meet some requirements like age or anything. So this would be more complex, but in our case it is really simple, and we only handle our guard in this constant. So let's say this would be a service which would somehow return false. And now we are in Tokyo. We can go to home, and now we are going to click on Sydney, and nothing happens. We can't. And this is the purpose of guards, nothing else. Of course, we have some more advanced features again, but the main aim of this so-called guards is this. I cannot enter the component or the root for Sydney because I don't have visa for Australia. And this is it. maybe you might ask why I cannot do the console directly in Sydney component. So I would always allow user to go there. You know, I'm now in Sydney, and I only would display the content for this if the criteria is met. But yes, it could be done like this, but we rather do guards because we can have better control over it. We can do unit tests for guards. We even don't need to load Sydney component when we are not allowed to enter it. With lazy loading, now in this case we don't have lazy loading implemented, but if we would have instead component, we would have load component, and it is a function which returns Sydney component. We can't because we don't have it as default. Again, something what we can't explain in this scope of this video, but if we would do this so-called lazy loading, now when we don't activate because we have set our guard to false, then we even do not. I set it to default, so I now need to adjust my import. So we now even load component can be because I don't have component. Okay, so now when I have set it to false, I even do not load the component. So another advantage of using guards instead of putting the logic inside the component itself. So this is it. If you want to know more advanced features and more about it, follow the channel, subscribe to SpiralCoder, or Google for more, ask ChatGPT. My role is just to make things clear, help you to understand the basics, and motivate you mainly, to motivate you learn Angular. Angular is beautiful and it's worth. Ask ChatGPT. However, ChatGPT doesn't have a clue about Angular 17, so ChatGPT would not explain functional guards. But you can use plugins for ChatGPT. You can grab information from official documentation, and ChatGPT can also help. Yeah. Or write me and we'll have a call and I'll explain you and I will help you. Yeah. Learn Angular. So, and when I created the video about upgrading to Angular 17, I wrote a song about routing and guards. And since now we also covered this topic, we now can understand what we are singing about, right? So let's sing the song.
Mission completed.
Angular, Angular, how have you been? Hey Angular, you are at sweet 17. With routing and guards, you fill our hearts, and with binding data, see you later.